Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Butler, HySecurity Sales Engineer. Today I'm going to review the procedure to replace the main circuit board in one of our hydraulic gate operators. We call the main circuit board the Smart Touch Controller, or STC, and I'll be using one of our hydraulic gate operators, the Slide Driver 15, as the gate operator that I'll be replacing the board in. All right, so let's quickly kind of review our setup here. So as I pan down here, you can see on the table I have a Windows-based laptop, and I'm running the Start software. You can see that Start screen on there. And really I'm just using this to save the menu settings and to be able to restore them quickly once I replace the board. And so I've got, there's the laptop, there's the cable, there's the new Smart Touch Controller board. That's part number MX000585-0. And right next to it here's the Slide Driver 15. It's a single phase 115 volt AC unit. There's the keypad display on the lid of the electrical enclosure. And that's what we'll be opening up here in a few minutes to look at that main circuit board and review the procedure. But first, let's take a look at the side. On our gate operators, we put a serial number sticker on the side of it, and let's take a closer look at that here. Here we identify this as a Slide Driver 15. There's the serial number and the input voltage, and then there's the date. That's the date of manufacture, so January 6th of 2015. And there's also, just in case that sticker has come off the side of the chassis, there's also an identical sticker on the pump pack on the reservoir. You can see it there to the right on the reservoir of the pump pack there. Okay, so that's the second place for that serial number sticker and the date of manufacture. And now let's flip open the lid to the gray electrical enclosure, and let's take a gander inside. All right, so there we go. Okay, as we look at this inside the electrical enclosure, starting on the left over there, that white unit is called the motor contactor. Up in the upper left is the transformer. To the right of that, that small circuit board is called the power supply board. And to the right of that, on the right side of the electrical enclosure, is the main circuit board, the Smart Touch Controller. All right, let's do a quick overview here of the procedure. All right, so we're going to remove all the cables, starting with this ribbon cable. Remove that. That goes to the display board and keypad. We have a couple cables down here for the limit switches. Remove those. We'll remove the red stop jumper on there, and that's the one that's on the number 1 terminal interface. It's normally closed, and that's going over to one of the COM terminals on the power supply board over here. Here was the big power connector, that big yellow connector. It's got some white tabs that hold it in, so we'll rotate it back and pull it up. There's the connector for the buzzer or speaker, and also the stop button. So once those are all removed, this is a pretty vanilla plain install here. We don't have any safeties on. There's no vehicle detectors plugged into our HY5B slots or HY5A slots. And once we do that, there's 6 screws, 1 in each corner of the board and 2 in the middle. We'll remove those, pull the board out. All right, let's get started. I'm going to close the lid. And if the board is still operational, that is, you can still see the display and everything, then what would be beneficial is to know what the current settings are. So I'm going to hit the menu key one time, and watching the scroll, you'll notice the build year setting, the operator type setting, the handing, the usage classification, that's for the UL325. There's a cycle count, and it stops at the close timer setting. By the way, we are in the user menu here, okay? So I've written down those settings on the board here. So there we have it. We have a Slide Driver 15. Date of manufacture is 1/6/2015. And we have build year is 1. The operator type is 1A. The set handing is right-handed, and the usage class is 3, all right? So now, armed with that information, we're ready to do the board replacement, okay? Yeah, one more thing here. I previously showed you by pressing the menu key one time on the keypad and watching the display that you could review
the settings, the build year, the operator type, the handing, and the usage class. And so we wrote those down, and we'll re-enter those once we put in the new board. Another thing to consider is you could, using our Start software, which I'm showing here on the screen right now, and I'm going to go into that in a second, into the setting here which says Enter Operator Menu Settings, and I'm going to click on that right now. I have my laptop, which is a Windows-based laptop, hooked up to the main circuit board, the Smart Touch controller, using that Start download cable, and I've got it connected to that RS-232 connector on the Smart Touch controller. And I'm going to go right now. You can see that it's at the time and date tab, but before we send out a new board, they go into this and set the time and date. So the time and date should be correct on that board. But what I'm here for primarily is to really just save the menu settings. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to click at the bottom where it says Save Menu Settings, and it's going to automatically default to the folder on your hard drive. It's under HySecurity, so the HySecurity Start Menu Settings folder. And I'm going to call this slide driver 15. And so there it is. And now by doing that, by saving that, I've just saved those settings, the UC, the operator type, the build year. And after replacing the board, I can then reconnect my laptop to it, and then I would load those menu settings, and I'd be done. Okay, so a little simpler way there, instead of writing down the settings and then rekeying them, is just to use your Start software and to save the menu settings and then load those menu settings after you do the board swap. All right. That's it for that. Let me hit done here, and let's proceed. And the very first step, of course, we're going to drop power on this. Okay, so I'm going to turn off power. If you need to go to the panel and drop the breaker there, do that as well. Be safe. Okay, so now that I've dropped power on this thing, I'm going to start removing these cables. First, the display keyboard cable. I'm going to remove the two limit switch cables. I've got a screwdriver handy here so I can remove the red jumper wire from that stop button. Okay. I'm going to remove this connector that goes to the stop button and buzzer. And then I'm going to pull off this big cable. Now this big cable, it's held in place by these little white connectors, so carefully pry that off of there. Got that off of there. Now let's remove all these screws. First remove this one here in the corner. Okay, so we got the 6 screws removed. And let's remove the board. Pulling out the board. Replacing it with the new board. Just about there on these 6 screws here. All right, so I've got all those 6 screws on there. I'm going to put on the big yellow power connector. Make sure you get those. It only goes one way. Make sure you're not off a pin. Alright, press that down on there securely. Reconnect that speaker stop button cable. Again, all these connectors only go one way, but you can be off a pin, okay? So make sure you're got those plugged correctly. I'm putting on the limit switches here.
All right, so got the limit switches on. Put on the stop wire here. If we don't put on the stop wire, the operator will not run, right? The number 1 stop terminal is a normally closed interface there. All right, and lastly, the cable for the display keypad. I think that's it. Just reviewing. Looks like we've got everything connected. Okay, so let's turn the power on. I don't know if you can see that heartbeat beating on the board there, right? And now that I've got the display the power turned on, I'm ready to input those menu settings once again, okay? All right, we've got the new board installed, and now I've powered up the slide driver, and it immediately goes into its initial setup routine, and we have a few questions to answer, all right? And it's asking right now for the operator type. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about this keypad display. We call this a dual function keypad in the sense that there's a couple modes. One is command or run mode, and one is menu mode. So in command or run mode, you can see it corresponds to these keys that have the black lettering: open, close, stop, right? And also reset over here, okay? So, and that's in command or run mode. When you press the menu key down in the lower right, that's lettered in white. Now the white lettering applies to those keys, the previous, next, and select. And it looks like on these keys that there's a left and a right, but actually just press in the middle, okay? This is a pressure sensitive keypad, and you press right in the middle, and such as I just did, and I've selected that item right now, the OT, all right? So let's talk about this OT setting here. That's the operator type. To be able to change a setting, you had to press that select button like I just did, all right? And now it's changeable. And now to see the settings for this operator type, I press the next key to increment up one at a time, or I could press the previous key to decrement. So let's do that. So I'm going to hit next, and there it says OT1 is a slide driver, swing riser 3, 4, 5, right, 7. That's a slide driver 50 VF. So I'm incrementing right now, and now I've wrapped around, and we know that this is a slide driver. So I'm going to select number 1. Once I've chosen the setting I want, I press the select key again. Notice those first 2 characters stop flashing, and now we've set that menu setting of OT or operator type as to number 1 slide driver. All right. So now let's move forward here. If that was all the questions that you needed to reply to, it would automatically exit this routine. You'd see HySecurity displayed in the menu, and also the version of the software. It'd also chirp at you or beep at you. And then it'd go back and it'd say HySecurity gate open, gate closed, okay? But because it hasn't done that, it means there's more questions that we need to answer or satisfy. And so I'm going to hit the next key. So I hit that, and here AD I know is input voltage. So is this an AC or DC machine? Again, to change it, I'm going to hit select here, and the AD is flashing. I'm going to hit next. So that's an AC gate. This is 2, a DC gate, and 3, high inverter. High inverter is a UPS battery backup unit that if you need a battery backup, that's a good solution for you. Let's go, and from the previous settings, when we saved those from the scroll, it said the operator type was 1A. The A indicates AC. If that would have been 1D, we would have chosen DC. So I'm choosing AC. I'm going to hit that select button again, stop it flashing. It didn't pop out of this routine, so let's hit the next key. Build date. Okay, actually, it says BY because we call this build year, but it's also synonymous with build date. And this is the variable or setting that we came up with to satisfy the UL 325 January 2016 update, and also the August of 2018 update, okay? So basically this is saying that if the machine was built before 2016, that would be a build year 1. If it was manufactured between 1 January of 2016 and July 31st of 2018, that would be build year 2. Machines built after 1 August of 2018 are build year 3. So let's take a look. I'm going to select that. There it is. So build year 1 is before 2016. That's what this machine is, by the way, because it was manufactured in 2015. Remember, we looked at that serial number earlier on this, okay? But I'm just going to hit the next key, just show you the other settings. And there's January of 2016 to July 31st of 2018. And there's after July 2018. Okay, so starting with August 1st of 2018. All right, but I'm gonna hit the previous key to decrement, or I could hit the next key to wrap around. There, build date, build year 1. I'm going to select that. And by the way, by selecting that, it means that I don't have to put on the monitored external entrapment devices. If it's build year 2 or 3, we are monitoring those external entrapment devices, and you will have to have those properly configured, installed on the machine for the machine to work. And a slide gate, that would be a safety, whether that's an edge or an eye, that covers the one that would cover the open direction and one that would cover the closed direction. All right, so let's continue on. It didn't pop out of this routine like I said earlier, so let's keep going. Usage class, we recorded that earlier. That was a UC3, so I'm going to select this, make it flash, change to UC3, there. And it's still in that routine, so I'm going to hit next again. And this is gate handing. And in a nutshell, when you're at the operator, you're standing on the secure side of the perimeter, and if the gate opens to the left, it's the left-handed. It opens to the right, it's the right-handed. When we previously recorded the menu settings from the scroll, it was a right-handed gate, so I'm going to select this to make it flash again, to make it changeable. And either way I go, there it is, right, so I'm selecting that. And it's still asking for more questions, right? Otherwise it would have popped out of this routine. So hit next. Buzzer. So this is the volume of the buzzer. So select it for your choice. It doesn't matter to me, but there's the loudest buzzer, and that's not as quite as loud. Here you can hear those. There's number 1, there's 2. So let's go back and set it to 1. That's pretty annoying. Okay. All right. And now notice how it just came out of the routine. It says HySecurity H460, HySecurity gate stopped. That H460 is the version of the firmware on the Smart Touch controller. All right. So that's how you set up. Piece of cake. The slide driver is ready to run. Let's see if it runs. Let's hit open. Sure enough. Hear that motor spin up. I'm going to stop it now, right? Because I don't have this on the gate, so it's not going to hit those limit switches. I could have reached down and tripped them. But now let's do a close. Make sure it closes. All right, that concludes the setup of this Smart Touch controller board replacement and the reconfiguration of that board. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, we've just installed the board, and we just re-entered those settings that we saved from the scroll earlier, the settings such as build year, operator type, the handing, and the usage class. But if we had previously saved those settings using the start program, we could reload those, and then we wouldn't have to re-enter them via the keypad display, and we'd be finished at that point. So, okay, so let's try that now. So I've got start showing. You can see the keypad display that says OT0, and now I'm going to go into enter operator menu settings. I'm going to select that. I'm now into those settings. I'm going to go over to the load menu settings button at the lower left. I'm going to select the file that I previously saved, and I called it slide driver 15, and there it is. So I'm going to reload that. And now notice on the display to it, once I went into the menu settings, it said HySecurity config mode. And now that we've done that, I'm just going to say done. Oh, well, let's verify first of all. Let's go to the installer menu, and if we go to part 2, the tabs on the side, it did select the slide driver OT1, which is the correct setting for this operator type, and the AC motor. Let's check another setting. Let's look at that build year. Yep, it said pre-2016. So it looked like it did what it was supposed to do. And now that I just hit done, it exit that program, and
you can see the display just went into what we call run or command mode. So now it says HySecurity gate stopped. Okay, so that concludes this procedure to replace the Smart Touch controller board in any of our hydraulic gate operators. Okay, and the Smart Touch controller is the main circuit board in not only the slide driver, but in the strong arm, the swing riser, the hydro lift, the hydro swing, the strong arm M30, M50, HydroSpy XL. So all those hydraulic gate operators use the same main circuit board, the Smart Touch controller, MX000585-0. All right, that concludes this video showing the Smart Touch controller main circuit board replacement procedure. Thank you. Bye-bye. We have a couple of our Smart Touch controller boards, and I was going to review the labeling on these two boards, and specifically the labeling from terminal screw 13 down to terminal screw 19. And as you look at these boards, these are identical boards. The only difference, the one on the left has a label on it. You can see the different color blue, and it's labeled to where number 13, terminal screw 13, is the edge sensor. 17 would be the photo eye open, 19 is the photo eye close, and the photo eye power is on 14 and 15. On the board on the right, you can see that we've redefined those, and we call it sensor 1, sensor common, sensor 2, and sensor 3. All right. First, let me give you a little background. Smart Touch controller came out in 2002. The first version of the Smart Touch controller board we called the classic board, and that was prevalent from 2002 to 2006. In 2006, we released the version 2 of the Smart Touch controller board, and that's what you're seeing on the screen. We call that the new generation board. And now a little background. Let's rewind back to March of 2000 when UL 325 came out with some specific safety requirements for gate operators and gate operator systems. And one of the changes was that gate operator manufacturers such as HySecurity, on their gate operators, they had to have a built-in safety device that they called a Type A device. Okay, and HySecurity implemented that with what we call the IES, or Inherent Entrapment Sensor, and that is installed on our gate operators today. The second safety requirement with UL 325 back in March in 2000 was that gate system installers had to identify entrapment risk zones and had to install 2 independent means of entrapment protection on gate systems. So let's talk specifically about a slide gate here. So a slide gate needed either an edge or an eye to protect in both directions of travel, one in the open direction and one in the closed direction. In January of 2016, UL 325, and specifically January 12th of 2016, UL 325 was updated, and one of the major changes in that was that those 2 independent means of entrapment protection, those eyes and edges, had to now be monitored. Monitored meaning that before you move that gate, they had to make sure that at least an eye or an edge was installed in both an open or closed direction. All right, so that was the requirement for UL 325 in January 2016, and the way that HySecurity implemented that was to update their software. And we updated the software, and then we relabeled those inputs. So now we could put on eyes and edges on our board. Doesn't matter which terminal they were on, whether that be on 13 or 17 or 19, and we would define it in our software, whether that was an eye in the open direction or closed direction, or an edge in the open or closed direction. That was the big change for us on these boards. And so today, if you're installing a Smart Touch controller board inside of a hydraulic gate operator that was manufactured before 2016, then we send a label with that board, that slightly off blue color label, and you would put that on the board for any gate operator that you're putting the board in manufactured before 2016. If it was manufactured after 2016, you don't have to do that because we've redefined those as sensor 1, sensor 2, sensor 3, and that's good from back in 2016 to current to today. All right, so I just want to review that with you.